Okay, next up is Brian. This is also Brian's first time on the stage here at Mock-Up.
All right, my name's Brian, as she said, and I'm an outdoor educator, and specifically I lead wilderness trips in the mountains and canyons of southern Utah. And when we lead these trips, the instructors on the course, we get to choose our own route within certain constraints. And so it happened that one August, another instructor and a good friend of mine named Laurel and I were scheduled to do a class together. And we don't get to work together that often because we're both senior staff and we usually get paired with younger people. So we decide that we are going to plan the absolute best route, most challenging route ever. Now, one of the constraints we have with this is that for the first few days of the course, which is the riskier part, the staff amongst them have to have hiked the full route of those days at least twice. And there was this 1 mile section of the route that Laurel and I hadn't done in many, many years. And so we decided that we needed to scout that. Not that far, but the problem was, or the first problem was, that section was right here. And to get there, you had to go 12 miles from this access point. This was Thursday night, and the class started on Sunday, so we had all day Friday to take care of this, and then all day Saturday to finish planning and prepping for the course. The other option was to drive a road all the way around here for about 2.5 hours, mostly dirt, and then hike in 2 miles. Well, we couldn't do that one because most of the vehicles, in fact, all the vehicles of the school were being used for other purposes until in the afternoon. So we had to leave really early and hike the 15 total miles of that and arrange for Dave to come and pick us up late in the afternoon. So we're all set. We wake up early, 6 o'clock in the morning. We're going to be hiking by 6:30. We have our breakfast, we have our coffee, and then we decide to have another cup of coffee. And then when we're finishing that up, somebody else shows up and starts cooking bacon. And that smells really good. And so we think, well, we're going to have a long, tough hike. We better get some bacon in our bellies and get those calories before we take off on this adventure. And so we have the bacon, and then the field director shows up, and he wants to talk to us about, well, where are you going, and how long is it going to be, and why don't you just do a different route that you've done before? And after we get through all that explaining to his very reasonable questions, we start hiking at about 8:30. But we know the way for most of it. We're taking off, we're making good time, and then we start climbing up this mesa, and we look around and we think, well, wait a second. We're supposed to be over there. You see, Laurel and I don't get to talk that much, so we got engrossed in conversation and we weren't really paying much attention, and now we're about a mile off course. But not to worry, we're in shape, we're fast, we get to the top of the mesa, we recommit ourselves to focusing and making time. And we do that very well until we get to another section that we call the Needles, which is this series of slot canyons. And there's this really cool spot where there's this ponderosa tree that grows straight up out of the rock. It bends 90 degrees straight across a slot canyon and then straight up again. And if you climb the right way, you can stand on that and have this really cool picture taken that'll make your mother cringe. So we did that. And then we get through the Needles. And we find these wonderful slick rock pools. This Navajo sandstone holds water really well, and it rained the day before, and there's this fresh rainwater. So we just lay down and slurp that water right up from those puddles. It was great. And then we continue on, picking up the pace a little bit because we realized we lollygagged there. And then Laurel sees over there, off of our route, an elk antler, a big elk antler. And it's heavy, but this is a good find because we teach primitive living skills, kind of like Native American survival stuff, and so there's a lot of tools in that elk antler, so it's worth toting back. Now, I don't know how many of you know this, but when you're talking about elk and deer and their antlers, you generally refer to them as a rack. And even though that Laurel and I have told and heard all of those jokes before, we continue to work into our conversations comments about Laurel's rack. And as we're giggling and laughing, the skies are getting darker and darker and darker, and soon the drizzle starts, and then it's a full rain shower, but we're pressing on. And at some point, the clouds just really open up and the thunder and lightning starts, and we pull out the poncho, and then we're huddled under this poncho, trying to wait out this storm. We're digging trenches with our hand to keep that water from running underneath our butts. And as we're sitting there, we're thinking, you know, we're about 2 miles from that spot that we really need to scout. And that sun is really starting to get low over there on that horizon. There's a spot on there where there's this 25-foot drop where you either have to find the rope that's there or bring your own rope to get down. That's going to be kind of challenging if it's dark. And then we think, wow, with this rain and those dirt roads, I wonder if Dave was able to make it all the way out there. But then we think, well, we don't have a phone. If we did have a phone, we wouldn't have any coverage. And if we had a phone and we had coverage, Dave's already left, so it really doesn't matter. We just need to get to that point anyway. So as soon as that rain lets up, we charge off again, and we come to this spot where we come out on this ledge overlooking this huge canyon known simply as the Gulch, and we know we're close. We just have to go about 1 mile upstream along that ledge, and that's where the rope should be. So we head up that way, and we get there, and we're looking for the rope, and we're looking, and we're looking, and we're looking, and we're not finding it. And that ledge just kind of narrows down to nothing, and a 300-foot cliff down and a 100-foot cliff up. And so we go back and forth, and just about as that sun's about to drop below that western horizon, we see the rope. Relief. We're there. And so we go down that rope hand over hand. Laura goes down that rope hand over hand, being a little more careful not to gore herself on that big elk antler that she's carrying at the same time. And we get down that 25-foot section, and then we have to pick our way over boulders and around other rocks and down scree slopes about 200 and some more feet till we get to the bottom of the canyon. And by the time we get there, it is dark. Really dark. There's a crescent moon, but it's over in the west, and it's going to set real soon, and we don't have any light benefiting from that. So now we just have to go up canyon, though. This is easy. We're going to walk up there, and as we're going along in the dark night, these beautiful canyon walls, we start to think, I really hope Dave made it out here. And we get there, we're getting closer, and at one point, we stop, and we look at each other. We hear something. Did you hear that? What was that? What was that? Ah, that's Dave singing. Great. We're almost there. And it was Dave singing. And now we're being guided in to our end point after a long day. We're completely worn out and spent from this. And Dave is guiding us in with these stars up above because the clouds all cleared out for us. We meet up with Dave. He's big smiles. We give hugs all around because we're a huggy kind of group of people. Dave compliments Laurel's rack, and then he says, I have some bad news. And I give him this look, and he says, well, there was this section where I couldn't quite get the truck past. I didn't feel comfortable trying, and so we have to hike to the truck about 5 more miles. And I look at him with this look that says, don't be fucking with me now. And he wasn't, and we were hiking 5 more miles. And as we're hiking along, my attitude is spiraling down into the toilet. I'm blaming Dave for not being able to get the truck across that whatever it was. This is a good truck, really. I mean, I don't know what this was. This is a 1978 Chevrolet Camper Special with 4-wheel drive and CompuCruise. Whatever that is. And we continue on a bit, and then I think, well, at least we're on a dirt road. We can make good time. And my attitude starts to go up again. And then I look again at the stars up above us and the canyon walls and the circle cliffs, and it's becoming a beautiful night. And so we get close to that spot, and then Dave points out this section that he didn't really feel comfortable getting the truck across. And it was about this. And I'm thinking, with a shovel that I know is in the truck, we could get a Geo Metro across that. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I talk myself back down. We're here. We're going home. We're going to get a good night's sleep. And then apparently Dave had also brought another instructor with him named David. So David comes out. We greet each other. Hugs all around again. More compliments on Laurel's rack. And then we find out the next problem. That wonderful 1978 truck won't start. I'm thinking, well, that's not so bad, actually. I've worked at this school a long, long time, and I've been in a lot of situations where this truck won't start. It's old. It just needs a little tender love and care. It has its little quirks, but you just have to know those, and you coax it into starting. This has happened before. I'm not too worried, I say to myself, and I may have actually even said that out loud. And so I go sit in the driver's seat, and I start through the series of quirks of this truck and how to start it. And the first one is, as you're cranking it, you reach over the steering column and you pull the gear shift back towards park and crank it. And 90% of the time that works, but this time it didn't. And so then I go to the other one, and you go tighten up those battery terminals, and then you push in this knob or that knob and the other. And I go through all 20 different tricks in this truck, and it doesn't start. This truck is broken. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere at this point. The dirt road that we're on is the only way in here for a vehicle, and you have to follow that 10 miles until you hit another road. And there's nothing on that road because the only place that road leads is the town that we just hiked 20 miles from. So we're as close as we're going to get to town, right where we are. And actually spending the night out isn't the bad thing. We teach outdoor survival skills. We spend 7, 14, 28 days out all the time. Hiking back those 20 miles is not really a problem either. We regularly hike 20 miles on any given day of a course. The problem is that all 4 of us have to start courses in about 36 hours at this point. We have one more thing to do that we can try, and that is the oldest cell phone you have ever seen. And it comes in this bag. It's probably about this big, and it's that thick, and it unzips. And this doesn't even have power on its own. You have to plug it into the cigarette lighter, so old. And fortunately, somehow there's power getting to the cigarette lighter. So we plug that in, and I'm holding this out the window like there to try and get the best reception. And I get a signal, and I get a call into our field office, and Steve picks up. This is great. Steve, I explain the situation. Steve says, well, did you try this? Did you try that? And after talking through with Steve all the 20 different things that didn't work to start the truck, he's convinced that we've tried everything. And even though all of the vehicles for the school are being used or broken down at that point, Steve agrees to take his personal truck and come all the way out and pick us up that 2-hour drive. We breathe a sigh of relief. We give great thanks to Steve, and we settle in for a wait. We light a fire because it's getting cold. We move that truck out of the middle of the road, and as we're sitting around the fire enjoying the night, I start to forgive Dave. Because if he actually got it past that one point and got the truck all the way to the actual meeting point that we expected, and it broke down there, there's no way we would have got a cell phone signal, and would have definitely been hiking those 15 miles back. So it's a beautiful night again, and pretty soon through the quiet we hear Steve's truck. We start cleaning things up around the fire. We get ready, and not long after that we see his lights cutting through the darkness. He gets there, he gets out, we greet, everybody hugs, compliments on Laurel's rack, and then we get back into the truck. The Daves get in the back, Laurel and I get in the cab with Steve, and now we're cruising home. It's late. It's going to be even later when we get back, but we're going to be in our own tents and our own sleeping bags for a good night's sleep. And we're getting to that point where it's that lack of sleep giddiness where everything's funny, and we're telling our stories of the adventure to Steve to try and help keep him awake on this drive. And as we're doing that, we round this one curve, and all of a sudden the headlights on Steve's truck just completely cut out. And Laurel and I go, ah! And Steve slams on the brakes, and the guys in the back go, ah! And as we come to a screeching halt, those lights flicker back on just a little bit. And Steve pulls back out into the dirt road, and we continue on, and he turns to us and he says, yeah, I try not to drive at night because sometimes randomly my headlights just go out. But usually when I slam on the brakes, they come back on. Thank you.